Hello and welcome. My name is Sharon and this is Trio.of.Witches Tarot. This is my first YouTube video and I'm going to do it as a VR to Astral Lady Tarot, and it's how are you a cliche tarot reader? So the first prompt for that is you have more than one version of a deck. So I have a few decks that I have more than one version of. And we'll start with the Lili Black and the Lili White. So I have the Lili Black in a mini and the Lili White in a regular size. And this is the mini Lili Black. Most of the art is the same. It's a little, some of the images are a little bit different in the Lili Black than in the Lili White. Some of them are the same. And in the future I can do a side-by-side comparison of the Lili Black and the Lili White, if you'd like to see that. The next decks that I have two versions of are the Margarete Petersen. So I have the Margarete Petersen with the white borders and in a tuck box, which I have trimmed. And I have the anniversary edition, which I just got, which is with borderless backs and purple borders, more eggplant on the fronts. And I really like this. I think it makes the images pop so much more than the white borders did. And I don't think I'll be trimming this version of it. The guidebook is also much nicer in the anniversary edition. Get this one out so you can see. It's kind of crumbled up, but it's really thin paper. And this one has got like glossy paper. It's much thicker. And it's a nicer box. It's a tuck box. I got this on the anniversary edition on Book Depository, if you're interested in looking that up. And this is my trimmed version. Not the greatest trim job. And I edged it in rainbow colors. So that's the Margarete Petersen, which in the future I'll do a side-by-side of. And I have two versions of the RWS. I have the Centennial Edition, which you've probably seen, but I will show it real quick. And I have the Starlight Illuminated Tarot from Carol Herzer, which I just adore. I'm not crazy about the colors in the original RWS, the Centennial Edition. I like the images and I love the system, but the colors just don't do a whole lot for me. So that's the Centennial, and this is the Carol Herzer Starlight, which I am just in love with. And these are the medium-sized cards. So in the future I'll do a side-by-side of those two as well. And the last one that I have two different versions of is the Ember and Aura Tarot. I have the Awakening Edition and the regular edition. So this is the Awakening Edition. It has borders on the backs. And this is the regular edition without borders. And the backs are different in more ways than just the border. The colors are different. The pattern is a little bit different. The gilding on them is, they're both pink, but they're a different shade of pink. And in the Awakening, the colors are, on some of the cards, are very different. And there is one card that is totally different between the two decks. So there's a side-by-side. And the font is different on them. So in the future, I'll do a side-by-side of those two versions of the Ember and Aura Tarot, which is one of my very favorite tarot decks. So that's it for my more than one version of a deck. So the next prompt is backup decks. So I have a few decks that I have backups for. I have the Blood Moon Tarot, and I have a backup that I have never even opened. So I haven't seen the Blood Moon Tarot covered a lot. I'm not sure why. I'd like to do a video on an in-depth walkthrough of this deck. I have the art guidebook for it. So yeah, I love this deck and I want to study it more. So I'll probably do videos on my more in-depth study of this deck. So that's my first deck that I have a backup for. My next deck is the Tarot of the Toiling Hands, which is a really cool deck. It was created by Esme Baker, and she is a tattoo artist, and during the pandemic she had to close down, so she decided to work on a tarot deck and create a tarot deck. And I would like to do in the future a walkthrough of this deck also. This is a really cool deck. I have a few black and white decks. Not a lot, but this is one that I really, really like. So one of them is not autographed and one of them is. And the last deck that I have backup for is Tarot of the Abyss. So I've edged both of them in silver, and one of them I actually colored in, which I really, really like. It made some of the things that seemed kind of hidden when it was black and white really pop out. So in the future I'll do a side-by-side of these two so you can see things that you may not have noticed in the past, how they pop out. And because it's a mass market, it's a US Games deck, so it's not expensive. I didn't feel bad about coloring it because it's not like I couldn't replace it. So that's all for backup decks. So the next prompt is tarot tattoo. So I don't have a tarot tattoo. I do have a tattoo. It's on my ankle, and I'm thinking about getting a tarot tattoo in the future. I'm just waiting until I go give some blood, because you have to wait a while before you give blood after getting a tattoo. So that's it for prompt number 3. Prompt number 4 is you drink tea. I have always drank tea. I love tea. I drink loose leaf tea, order it online. Upton Tea Imports is one place that I get it from. And then I transfer it into jars. I have many different flavors. I have Alice in Wonderland tea sets, a couple of them. And tea has been a ritual in my life for a long time now. Long before I started reading tarot. But yes, I'm not sure what that connection is, but I drink tea. I have coffee in the morning, but if I never had coffee again, I could only have tea, I'd be okay. So, the next prompt number 5, is crystals. So I have a few, not a lot. I have kind of a conflicted relationship with crystals because of the environmental impact of extracting them. Mostly I collect rocks. This rock is from Seward, Alaska. So, and this one is actually called honeycomb calcite, and it's found only in Utah. It's the Utah State Stone, apparently. It's really cool. It's very smooth. It feels kind of waxy, and it looks almost edible. So that's it for my crystals. Not a lot, just a few. So the next prompt is tarot books. So I have a lot of tarot guidebooks, and then I have a lot of books on the subject of tarot. So I have Tarot by the Moon. This is a really cool one. Has different spreads for each moon of the year and multiple spreads for each moon. That's a new one. Tarot Fundamentals, a book by Robert M. Place. This is a really good book. I just finished reading this. Paul Foster Case, Tarot and the Tree of Life, Rachel Pollack. That's a classic. Another book by Robert M. Place. That's a biggie. Mary K. Greer. Another one by Mary K. Greer. Another one by Rachel Pollack. So, yeah. Tarot books. This one is the one I'm reading right now. Tarot and the Tree of Life. Finding it very interesting. So in the future I can do some book reviews, kind of go through them, what I found to be the really interesting high points in the books. So the next prompt is tarot journals, and I have a few. So I have one journal that is for my deck interviews, and print out the spreads that I did. Some of them I do immersive interviews with, where I pull out the cards that I like and I don't like, and I journal about my feelings about those cards. And then I have my daily spread journal, some of it where I draw, not an artist, so not awesome. Print out the spreads again, journal about that spread. And I have one that is for my year ahead spread and for my monthly full moon, new moon spreads. So yeah, multiple journals. And the next prompt is about shuffling. So there is definitely something about shuffling. It's very soothing. I love it. I have decks that I use kind of just for shuffling. I mean, I still read with them, but I have favorite shuffling decks. This is one of them. It's US Games Cardstock. It's awesome. I don't riffle shuffle anymore because I have some decks that the cardstock's too thick, or the deck is too thick, or the cards are too big, and so I just overhand shuffle anymore, just as a matter of practice. So the next prompt is cardstock or gilding. So I kind of talked about the Ember and Aura earlier. This might even be my ideal card size as well. I have big hands. I mean, these are big cards. Compare these to a normal tarot size. You can see they're much bigger. Doesn't bother me. I like having the bigger images. And I don't riffle shuffle, but I imagine that these would be pretty good. They're very bendy, but still thick. And I'm a sucker for gilding. I love it. And this pink gilding is amazing. I mean, I'm half wanting to get the Crimson Asteria just for the red gilding that's on those cards. So yeah, I am not so much of a cardstock snob. I will get a deck, even if I don't love the cardstock, if I love the cards, but I definitely have cardstock that I prefer. So the next prompt is fairy lights. So I've seen in a lot of videos, people have fairy lights all over their altar. I don't have fairy lights on my altar because my altar is pretty busy with a lot of other stuff. And this is not my altar. But I do have fairy lights out in my garden, near my gazebo, out in my front yard. I have jars with them. I have solar fairy lights. I have a lot of fairy lights outside. And the next prompt is candles. Yes, I have candles. I love scented candles. Oh, that one is amazing. Rose. That smells so good. So a lot of candles. I have candles in my bedroom. I have candles at my altar. I have candles at my tub. I have candles in my craft room. If I can have a candle somewhere, I have a candle somewhere. Love candles. Something about the glow of candlelight and the scent of a good candle. Yeah. So the next prompt is tarot table. Do you have a devoted tarot table or tarot space? And I, in fact, took over our dining room. So I have a tarot room. I took over the dining room table. So I have a whole dining room table devoted to my tarot, where my altar is, where I do my readings, where my guidebooks are, where candles are, and I keep my journals and do my journaling. I took over the china cabinet for my books. So yeah, I have a tarot room. So the next prompt is something that either I made up or someone else did in the video that I saw. I've watched a lot of videos on this tag, Cliche Tarot Reader. They are so fun to watch. But the next one is deck modifications. So you saw my edging on my Tarot of the Abyss. Silver edging on that. You saw the Margarete Petersen that I trimmed and edged with rainbow colors. I have other decks that I have trimmed. And I have a couple of extreme deck modifications where it's kind of a deck overhaul more than a deck modification. So the first one is the Tarot of the She. And I know a lot of people love this deck, but it just wasn't for me. The artwork just, I love the colors and some of the cards I liked, and the guidebook I love. The guidebook is just wonderful. But I have a weird thing about faces, and I just couldn't deal with the faces in the Tarot of the She. So I turned it into a Halloween deck. I got children's books at a secondhand store, cut out the pictures and glued them to the cards, tried to make the image match the description in the guidebook, which is a little bit different than a normal RWS. Some of them I did kind of ironic, but I love this. I think it's so fun. There's one of the kind of ironic cards, the Three of Cups. They don't look very happy, do they? And this deck makes me happy. It makes me laugh. And so in the future, I could do a walkthrough of that and my process on that. And if you should ever decide you want to make a deck of your own like that, we can kind of go through that. And another one that I did a full overhaul on was the Eudes Picard Tarot, which has beautiful backs and was a historic deck. It's a pip deck, and I know that some people would be horrified that I did this to it, but I just did not like it at all. I was never going to use it, and I was disinclined to try to sell it. It just seemed like a lot of work. So again, at a secondhand store, I found some images. I found a catalog of bird art, and I cut out the pictures and I glued them to the cards. That's the Chariot. And I love this deck too. This deck, like, for me, it kind of has these pared down meanings. That's the star. And I love the art. This deck makes me happy. And isn't that really what it's about? Is that it means something to you. And gives you feels. So that is it for all of the prompts. So I want to thank you for watching. I'd like to know if you made it to the end, because I will be doing deck giveaways in the future. So if you want to comment, just say deck giveaway in the comments below so I know you made it to the end. And come back, because I have decks that I will be giving away. I will be doing all kinds of more in-depth videos on the things that I showed here, and a lot more VRs to a lot more people. Thanks for watching and have a wonderful day.